Hi guys, and welcome to the Ace Tanker for the T56 GMC, the Tier 3 American tank destroyer that was introduced into the game in 912. Now, I posted probably earlier today the T3 HMC Ace Tanker. I went back and basically got Ace Tankers in the 4 new tanks that were introduced in 912. So I've done the T18 RT, I've done the T82 RT, I did the T3 HMC earlier on, which was RT, but as a tank destroyer in game, and now we're doing the T56 GMC, the 4th of the tanks, and yeah, this is another RT. So the T56 GMC was brought into the game to replace the T82, which technically was RT and was moved to the RT line, but this was also RT, so again, wargaming logic. The T56 GMC is a GMC, not the HMC, so it's a T56 because it's a test tank, it's a trial tank, it was a prototype, only one was ever built in 1942, and it's a GMC because, as opposed to being a HMC, a howitzer motor carriage, this is actually called the gun motor carriage, because this tank, or this artillery, was all about its gun. It came with the 3-inch, which was it is the 3-inch. It's a very famous gun, actually. It began life as a coastal defense weapon in World War One. Later variation of the gun turned it into an anti-aircraft weapon around, mid 1920, 1922, and then finally the 3-inch was turned into an anti-tank weapon sometime around the 1930s. Now, a variation of the 3-inch is very, very famous because the most mass-produced version of the gun was actually the gun on the M12 Wolverine. And you might be saying, well, I thought the M12 Wolverine came with a 76mm. Yeah, that's what the 3-inch is. The 3-inch was basically a 76mm gun, so it was a gun as opposed to a howitzer, which is why it's called the GMC as opposed to the HMC. But it was designed as artillery, even though in-game it is a tank destroyer. Only one was ever built, and it was rejected because this was a gun, a 3-inch gun, or a 76mm, that was mounted on the chassis of an M3 Stuart, which was the light tank, and unfortunately the gun was just far, far too heavy for the tank, and as a result it failed its tests and never got beyond testing. This is not the 3-inch I'm using in the game at the moment. This is the 57mm, because historically speaking, the tank only ever was only ever tested with the 3-inch, but you do get a choice of weapons for the tank in World of Tanks. Now, the 57mm has got more penetration, but it's got less alpha damage than the 3-inch or the 76mm. However, the 76mm has better alpha, so the 76mm has 110 alpha damage, but only 101 penetration. This is 110 penetration, so the penetration is better, but the alpha is lower. However, the rate of fire and accuracy of this gun means the DPM of the 57mm is actually better than using the 3-inch or the 76mm that the tank was originally designed to come for. So that's why I've gone for this gun in-game. Now, the tank itself, well, it wasn't really a tank, it was an SPG, and as you could see, the back of the tank is completely open, and the crew only got protection from the front and maybe a little bit from the sides, because this was a vehicle that was designed to carry the gun. Full stop. This vehicle only existed to get the crew and get the gun into position in order to fire. This tank didn't even have ammo. There's no room for ammo in this tank. So it was purely an SPG. It was driven into position. The only reason this tank or this gun has tracks was to be able to get it into position to fire. And all ammo had to come from either it pulling a trailer of ammo behind it or with another vehicle supplying the ammo for the tank. So it was an SPG in real life. But anyway, and the crew, as you could see, were just completely out in the open. They had to basically stand in the open in order to fire the gun. So it was basically artillery on tracks. That's essentially what it was, but it never made it past prototype stage because the gun was, as I say, too heavy for the tank. Anyway, we are here on, never remember this, Sand River, a tier 3 and a tier 5 game, although there were only 2 tier 5s or 1 tier 5 on either side, so not that many tier 5s or tier 4s, about a third of the team on both sides are tier 4s. In fact, we've got more tier 4s than the enemy, so yeah, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We're just going to go. Now, I started playing this tank, as I say. I went back to get the low-tier Ace Tankers and the 4 new tanks that were introduced, and I did it, and I'm happy to do it. But the T3 was an absolute nightmare to play. This tank, not as much as a nightmare. Thankfully, I sold the T3 HMC, got into this tank, and picked up the Ace Tanker in just a few games. So, happy I didn't have a miserable time playing this tank. This tank's strengths, obviously, good DPM, decent penetration, 110 penetration. The alpha damage is not terrible, and the rate of fire is good, so it's got decent DPM. It's not fast. It's definitely not a quick tank when it travels in a straight line. It's a little bit sluggish, but you know, it's good enough. It's maneuverable enough. You can see I missed my first shot, always do in low-tier games for some reason. But you can see I'm picking up a lot of spots here, and that is very, very unusual, especially when you see the endgame results, because this tank has absolutely no view range. It gets 290 meters of view range. Now, it's a tier 3 that sees tier 5s. Hey, first kill. But it's got no view range, which is why I've got binocs on the tank, and once again using binocs and a camo net. It's got the worst view range of any of the tier 3 tank destroyers. So that's why I'm using binocs. I'm not sure if I've been spotted. Someone took a shot. I've definitely been spotted now. There's too many tanks here, and I've got no armor. So just like the T3 HMC, this tank has absolutely no armor. And it's not the quickest. I'm trying to run away here, keeping an eye on enemy tanks behind me, but I'm not going to get away in time. So we swing around, start doing more damage. The Grant has the same problem, forward-facing. I was going to say TD, and technically it's a medium tank, but we take out or we do some damage to the ground, someone else takes him out. But yeah, this position is not looking so good, especially for a tier 3 with no armor. And my hit points, I've only got 160 hit points, so plenty of these tanks are going to be able to kill me. But thankfully we seem to have beaten off or taken most of the pressure. Well, at least I thought we did in the north, but then 3 tanks have just appeared in the north, so we're getting out of there. As you can see on the right hand side, I'm doing a little bit of spotting, but we're not doing a huge amount of speed here. Even though we're going downhill, we're only doing about 45 kilometers an hour, so this is not a quick tank by any stretch of the imagination. The maneuverability and the speed are not great, but it's okay. You can relocate, you can run away. So I've relocated. There are 3 tanks down here. I'm relocated, gonna let my binocs kick in, see if we can get any more spots. And again, I've got a scrub crew because I moved them straight from the T3 into the T56, and as a result I have no sixth sense, got spotted, got shot. You can see this is an early game from 9:14 because the hit marker is not showing up properly. But we did get a little bit of assistance, damage done. I'm knocking down trees to try and make a nest for myself. Oh, Electo, dangerous tank. Now I'm trying to reverse so that the trees go solid or the cover goes solid, but it doesn't work. But you can see the rate of fire here. Electo fired once, we were able to get 2 shots into the Electo. And I'm just looking for shots. T56 down there is behind buildings, so I'm not going to be able to get any shots on him. He's behind a rise anyway. So I'm just looking to see where I could possibly do damage. Now, one thing that is nice about this tank, especially having played it straight after the T3 HMC, is the gun traverse is not terrible. You don't have to keep moving the hull of this tank as much as you did in the T3. But we're capping. Pressure is off, unless that STVZ can reset. So I just moved down to try and stop the STVZ. He's managed to reset one of our tanks and cap. Looking for a shot. And again, no sixth sense. Don't spot the Electo popping up behind me. And there we go. I get taken out. But yeah, I wasn't amazed with this game. Didn't think it was going to be an ace. Thought I'd have to play another game in this tank. But thankfully our team do manage to take out the rest of the enemy tanks. And then this popped up. So it was the Ace, and I didn't have to play this tank again. I decided to sell it because, you know, even though the tank, to be honest, is not that bad, especially compared to the Tier 2, which is just awful, there's no point. I don't see myself ever playing the tank again, so sold it and moved on. But we picked up the Ace, we picked up Scout, and as I say, this tank has the worst view range of any Tier 3 TD in the game, and that's the benefit of putting binocs on the tank. So we managed to pick up a Scout medal in one of the tanks with the worst view range at Tier 3. The irony. Anyway, we finished top on XP with 726. Again, not an amazing game, but it was enough to pick up the Ace, and I'm happy. So 736 damage done, 2 kills, and I died, which is unfortunate, but we also managed to do 634 assistance damage, and again, as I say, that's the whole point of having binocs on the tank. Fired 14, hit 11, so the gun is definitely a lot better on this tank than it is on the Tier 2. I enjoyed playing it more, but not enough to keep it. We finished up with 19, almost 20,000 credits with a premium account, and it wasn't my first game of the day. As I say, I basically sat down to get Ace Tankers in basically most of the new tanks that were released in 912, the low tier Americans, and as I say, I've done it now. So you've had the T18 HMC, the T82 HMC, the Tier 3 T3 HMC, and the last one to go was the T56 GMC. So they've all been done, and we're done with low tiers for the meantime. So we're going to be getting some high tier Ace Tankers, because I've only been playing high tiers since, I think, spent enough time in low tiers over the last few weeks to do me for the next 6 months. So unless Wargaming release some more low tiers, then I'm pretty much sticking to the high tiers from here on out, at least until I have to go back and play them. Besides which, we've finished pretty much every low tier tank in the game. I think the lowest tiers I still need to get Ace Tankers in are Tier 7s now. I think we've managed to ace everything up to Tier 6 on every single nation. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.